In the hotel room.
What are you reading at the moment?
It's God's Demon. It's not too bad. It's interesting. It's a take on the demons down in hell and how they're getting by since the fall. It's interesting. It's pretty interesting. A little bit. I'm a sci-fi fantasy nerd, but it's a little bit different, darker fantasy than I normally read, I think.
Do you go darker fight week reading, or is
No.
this still your only opportunity to read?
It's basically the only time I have to read. I don't get any chance to read at home, so only chance to get it. I bring like 3-4 books with me every time I go somewhere for work. So this is my time. So I'm like, oh, I can read my books finally.
Benson, the big main event fight versus Peter Queally. You talked before about this being a new contract, a new 4-fight contract. Am I right in saying this is the last 4 fights in your career?
Oh yeah, for sure. This is the last 4 fights of my career. Gotta give it all I got, give it the best I got, lay it all out there. And then after I'm done, then it's going to be my wife's turn. It's going to be her turn to give it her chance to live her dreams, go be a world champion, I'll go pick up the kids from school, go drop them off, get in line. That school pickup line, that's a killer, that school pickup line. And then take them to chess practice and soccer practice and all that stuff, and I'll be doing all that stuff.
Making that decision.
Meals and, yeah.
Yeah, making that decision, does that change anything mentally for you? Like, is that freeing in a way where, I've got 4 fights left and I'm going to go out and give everything I have?
I think for me it's the exact opposite. It pushed that much more pressure. Like, only 4 left. For the rest of my life, I got 4 left. That's it. And then after this one, after the rest of my life, I got 3 left. And then 2 left. And then last one, So actually I think it kind of adds a little bit more pressure. But, I mean, for me personally, everything I do, I always add more pressure to myself to, get the best out of myself.
Yeah, what do you make of Peter as an opponent?
I think Peter's tough. I think he's a true veteran of the sport, been around for a little while. I think he has a good long straight right. He believes in his straight right, has a decent switch kick. He doesn't throw it against southpaws too much. I think he's a tough guy. It should be a good, fun fight. He's going to try and beat me up, and I'm going to try and beat him up.
Yeah, you've obviously fought in Dublin before. You had the fight against Miles Jury. Is there a different energy or atmosphere coming in this time? Or I know you said you wanted to kind of really put on a show for the Irish fans this time around.
Oh, I definitely want to give the Irish fans a better show. The last performance against Miles Jury, I felt after the fight a little bit lackluster. I feel like it wasn't my best performance. I just want to give a better performance. I want to have a better performance for the Irish fans. I think an opponent like Peter Queally is going to bring that best performance out of me.
Last one for me. Do you have any plans after the fight to travel around Ireland at all? Are you going to spend some time here?
Yeah. Actually, like I said, how much I enjoyed Ireland last time. I was like, oh man, I already get a chance to go out to Ireland again. Like, that's the place I'd want to bring my family out. So I'm actually bringing out the whole family this time. My wife, my 4 kids, and we're gonna explore Dublin and explore all Ireland, go see some castles, and just go sightsee a little bit.
Will you be asking Peter for any tips on where to go?
Yeah, probably. I'm sure he knows a few good places. Yeah, probably.
Peter's got an iconic walkout in this arena across the road. How much are you looking forward to just being in that atmosphere on Friday?
I think the Irish fans, the last time I was here, were amazing. It was a great experience, great vibe, great energy from the crowd. Anytime I like to think of us more as athletes, as competitors, but at the same time, I am realistic in that we're also entertainers as well. And as an entertainer, being in front of that kind of a crowd, that kind of energy, man, that's electrifying.
Peter obviously lost his world title fight here last time out. Do you think he really adds more pressure on him to perform in his return on Friday?
I can't speak for anybody else, but for me, I know coming off a loss is not a good feeling, and I am definitely way more jacked up coming off a loss, trying to get it back in that W column. I'm assuming he's gonna be the same way.
The last time you spoke about the fight against Miles Jury last time, and you said it to us in the scrum after that fight that you wanted to come back, you wanted to make a point of it to do, to put on a show again. And then 3 years or something since that, you haven't forgotten that, and you said it on Instagram again the other day. How big is that for you? Like, when you walked out, were you kind of shocked by the ovation you got? Like, you're obviously a big fan forever here, maybe not in Friday because you're fighting an Irish guy, but before, was that something that kind of made you want to come back because of the reception you got?
Well, it's all of it. It's hard to just put your finger on one thing. But overall, the entire experience in Dublin has been awesome. I generally have a good experience everywhere I go. I'm not too much of a tough guy, or I'm not too antagonistic at all or anything like that. But I generally have a good experience. But Dublin, the last time I was here, it was like above and beyond. Like, oh man, this is a really cool place. The people are really friendly. They're real nice, respectful. The crowd was amazing. The Sweet Caroline, the whole place singing Sweet Caroline. It was awesome. Like I was like, man, this is super cool. Like this is awesome. This is a good vibe. It's cool to see a crowd that excited, that pumped up for a fight, and not necessarily be entirely like negative, entirely just yelling. Oh, some crowds, some fans can have that sort of excitement, that kind of vibe, but then be very negative with it. To see a crowd just be excited and like cheering for their guys and just in a positive way, I think that is what I most connected with. Like the Irish fans were very positive in their cheering and not necessarily negative in their cheering. And we'll see how it goes this time.
And you said your kids are on. I'm not sure if they're going to the fight or not, but there's been a lot of talk recently about some people have brought their kids to their fights when they've lost or been knocked out and things. What do you think like that about having kids there, as someone whose kids are always around with them, and both of their parents obviously fighters as well? Do you think it's the right place to have the kids at the fight live, or is it something you'd rather keep them away, maybe in a hotel, or what way do you see it?
I'm okay with my kids coming to my fight. I'll let my wife make that decision. Sometimes she brings the kids to the fight. Sometimes she doesn't want to bring the kids to the fight. She won't bring them for whatever reason is. But for me, I think it's fine. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I think you have to take a good look at what kind of fighter you are, too. You live by the sword, die by the sword type of fighter? All your wins are by knockout? All your losses are by knockout? Maybe you might not want to bring your kids to your fight then. Like, if you're a 500 fighter and all your wins are by knockout, all your losses are by knockout, like, man, that's you want your kids to be there to witness that. My fights that tend to not be that way. So yeah, I'm okay with bringing my kids to my fights. I want to show my kids the hard work that it takes. I want my kids to see that all this hard work, this is the reason why I work so hard. So yeah, I'm okay with it. I don't think it's bad, but you have to be aware of your fighting style and yada yada yada, where you're at, the crowd atmosphere. Taking your kids to a fight in Vegas with the Vegas fans, as crazy and drunk as they get, and as like negative of fans as they get, that might not be a good idea. Like they're gonna hear some stuff that you probably don't want depending on how young they are, you might not want your kids hearing that kind of stuff.
Benson, a legend of the sport, Jose Aldo, made the decision to step away. You were obviously the UFC lightweight champion when he was the UFC featherweight champion. There was talks of him potentially moving up to even face you. What are your thoughts on his retirement and his career?
Man, this is the first time I got the question. I couldn't wait to get this question. I love Jose. He is the man. He is an absolute legend. I'd say a buddy of mine, coming up from the WC, coming to the UFC, us both having success. Man, I think he's the man. He's one of the all-time greats. And for him to walk away on his terms, how he wants to, I love that. I just all the most respect to Jose Aldo, to his career, to what he's done, to how he's done it. He's done it his way. I'm a big fan of that. He was never like a super big talker, never like a bragger, never a Billy Badass, Terry Tough Nuts type of individual, but just somebody who enjoyed himself, liked to have fun, jumped outside the cage and enjoyed the crowd reaction. It didn't matter where he was. In Sacramento, I'll still jump outside the crowd cage. The fans are still going to love me, So I loved everything Jose was about. I think he was a great champion, represented the sport very well. I think he was just overall good guy, So sad to see him go, but all the best to him in his next life's endeavors.
You've one more fight, and that will equal the amount of times you've also fought in the UFC as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Obviously, by the time this contract finishes, you will have fought more times in Bellator than the UFC. How
Nice.
do you want your legacy in Bellator to be compared to that incredible run you had in the UFC?
I don't know. I don't think I necessarily would. You have to have it separated. I mean, up to you guys. You guys are the journalists. You guys are the pundits who put everything to scope and put everything in scale and give great big words to this stuff, So I'll let you guys do your job.
But just for you, like with the last 4 fights in your contract, ideally your drawing or your comic book end from this,
Yep.
where do you want this to go?
After I beat up Peter Queally, get my hand raised and put a stop to Peter Queally, I'm going to get a title shot next. And I'm either going to beat up Pitbull. I'd love to do it in a soccer stadium in Brazil, or I'll beat up a Russian. Let's do that in a soccer stadium in Russia, no problem, But either way, I'm gonna end this last 4 fights with a Bellator lightweight belt around my waist, and then I'll let you guys do your job and talk about this and talk about that and how boring I was or how cool I was or how many exciting fights I had or whatever the case may be. As a fighter, we can't control that. I can't control, like Jose Aldo. I can't control what you guys say afterwards. Only thing I can control is how hard I work, what I do out there in the octagon, in the cage. That's what I can control. That's what I'm worried about. Not necessarily always worried about, like, oh, what they can say about your legacy and how they're gonna do this and how they do that. Man, I can't control that. You guys can say whatever the heck you want to say. People say this about, Derek Jeter. People say this about, whoever, Isaiah Thomas, and the kind of career he had, the man he was, yada, yada. Wayne Rooney, oh, what kind of man Wayne Rooney was, and yada, yada, kind of player he was. You guys can write about it for years and years and years and break apart his career. For me, for the athletes, we just go do our best. That's all we're really concerned about.
If you were to win let's say the fight in your next one, a man who's recently gone into free agency, who's also said he wanted a world title, is Nate Diaz. Is that someone who you'd be interested in trying to get over to the Bellator cage to defend your title against?
Sure. I mean, if he comes over, like, cool, awesome. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I want that fight or I'm itching for that fight or nothing like that. But if Bellator is able to sign Nate Diaz, he's gonna be getting paid. Good for him, man. Good for him. But sure, I would enjoy fighting Nate Diaz again. We fought once before. It was an enjoyable fight for me, and we can do it again, no problem. But he'll be just fine. He has made a ton of money in his career. His next contract, he's make a ton more money. So hats off to him.
And finally, most important question: have you been watching any of the Marvel series, and what do you think of them?
Again, just with the kids, I don't get to watch as many of the Marvel series as I would like to. We try to keep the violence on our TV down a little bit so the kids they start watching a little bit of Power Rangers. We had to cut the Power Rangers back on our kids. They start watching Power Rangers, all of a sudden they're flying off the couch, kicking each other in the head. Like, what are you doing? Stop that! You can't. So we try to cut that down on our TV as much as possible. We got Coco Melon and Choo Choo on our TV to keep them nice and calm and not beat each other up enough as it is. So I don't get a whole lot of chance to watch those shows right now.
Appreciate that. Thanks very much.
Benson, how are you? I've seen you fight a couple of times now in Budapest of all places and in the Tree Arena, of course. And you mentioned about your type of fight. So it feels to me, that you kind of get into a rhythm, and it seems almost hypnotic at times, almost balletic. So would this be a kind of a description you'd recognise? And how do you see that kind of style clashing with Peter on Friday?
I definitely think most fighters have their own certain style of fighting. You have to be good enough to either implement your style, instill your will during the fight, but also at the same time you have to be good enough to adapt and change and not just like, oh, I'm gonna hammer in this circle into this square peg. You have to be able to adapt and change and grow during the course of the fight. So I'd say I definitely have my style and how I like to throw down, but I like to also be good enough to, if the fight stays standing, to stay standing. If the fight goes to the ground, it goes to the ground. If the fight is all, a pure jiu-jitsu match, and let's play jiu-jitsu, no problem. But yeah, I would definitely say my style is, unique, different. I can definitely tell, just if you have masks on us or something like that, I think they could tell, my style of fighting, see me just the way I move and what the moves I use and whatnot. They could probably tell, oh, that looks like Henderson over there just by how he moves and the type of fight this is.
And just lastly from me, obviously it was in the Tree Arena, and at the end of the fight, you actually, instead of exiting the cage, you went back out to the front of the cage steps and you kind of saluted the crowd. Was that kind of, presumably you don't do that every time, was that something special in Ireland, or was it planned, or did you feel it was your last time here? Or?
No, I tend to give a lot of respect to the crowd. People tune in from around the world and watching on TV and online and streaming it and whatnot. But I always trying to go out of my way a little bit to respect the guys who come out and watch the event live. I love that. That's awesome. Like maybe the entertainer part of me, which I like to say that we're more competitors, more athletes. But I still like to give a lot of respect to the guys who come out, pay their hard-earned money, come out and enjoy the fights live. So I want to give all my respect to the people who come out and watch in the arena, sit their butts in the stands. I love that. That's awesome.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
Cool. Thank you, guys.